Thunder rolled across the night sky as Dr. Naomi Patel rushed through the hospital corridors, her footsteps echoing against the sterile walls. The emergency call had come in minutes ago, a woman in labor during the strongest geomagnetic storm ever recorded. But something was different about this case, something that made every instrument in the maternity ward malfunction when the mother was brought in. "What's the situation?" Naomi demanded as she burst into the delivery room. The sight before her made her stop dead in her tracks. Amara Williams lay on the bed, but the scene defied everything Naomi had learned in 15 years of medicine. The expectant mother was surrounded by a soft, pulsing light that seemed to emanate from within her body. "It started about 10 minutes ago," said James Williams, the father, his voice trembling. He stood at his wife's side, clutching her hand despite the strange energy coursing through the room. The lights, the machines, everything just went haywire. The medical equipment in the room flickered erratically. Digital displays showed impossible readings, and the backup generators struggled to maintain power. Through the window, Naomi could see the aurora borealis painting the sky in impossible colors, despite their location thousands of miles too far south for such phenomena. "The baby's coming," Amara gasped, her eyes glowing with an inner light that matched the aurora outside. The air in the room grew thick with static electricity, and Naomi felt her hair standing on end. As she moved to examine Amara, Naomi's years of medical training warred with what her senses were telling her. The child's heartbeat was visible through the mother's skin, not as a movement, but as pulses of light that synchronized with the aurora's waves outside. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Marcus Rivera, the resident physician who had called her in. "The energy readings in this room, they're off the charts. It's like the laws of physics are being rewritten." The delivery itself seemed to stretch the boundaries of reality. As Amara pushed, the room's lights pulsed in rhythm with her efforts. The medical staff worked in stunned silence, their faces illuminated by the otherworldly glow that filled the room. When the baby finally emerged, the entire hospital went dark. For a moment, the only light came from the child herself, a newborn girl who shone like a star brought down to earth. As she took her first breath, every electronic device within a mile radius surged back to life, stronger than before. "She's perfect," Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face as she held her glowing daughter. The light gradually dimmed until it was just a subtle shimmer on the baby's skin, like sunlight on water. Dr. Patel conducted the standard newborn examinations with shaking hands. The child, whom the Williams named Luna, was healthy by every measurable standard, yet clearly something unprecedented had occurred. Her cellular structure seemed to be in constant flux, adapting and evolving even as they watched. Her neural readings suggested brain activity far beyond what should be possible in a newborn. As news of the extraordinary birth spread through the hospital, a select group of individuals across the globe received encrypted alerts on secure channels. In an underground facility in Geneva, scientists gathered around monitors displaying data from the geomagnetic storm. In a hidden monastery in Tibet, ancient texts were pulled from dusty shelves, their prophecies suddenly relevant. And in a secret boardroom in New York, a group of powerful figures convened an emergency meeting. Luna Williams slept peacefully in her mother's arms, unaware that her birth had set in motion events that would change the course of human history. The thunder continued to roll outside, but the storm was passing. The aurora faded from the sky, leaving behind a world forever altered by what had transpired in that hospital room. Dr. Patel sat in her office later that night, attempting to write her report. How could she possibly document what she had witnessed? The medical equipment had recorded nothing but static and impossible readings. The only evidence was the collective testimony of the delivery team and the subtle glow that still emanated from the newborn's skin when she slept. What troubled her most were the questions she couldn't answer. Why had the geomagnetic storm peaked at exactly the moment of Luna's birth? Why did the child's brain scans show patterns that shouldn't be possible in human biology? And why did she have the unsettling feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger than herself? As dawn broke over the horizon, Luna Williams stirred in the hospital nursery. The other newborns turned toward her in their bassinets, as if drawn by an invisible force. Above her crib, the mobile began to spin without any breeze, and in her sleep, the child smiled, a gesture that would have seemed impossible for a newborn, just as impossible as everything else about her existence. In the coming days, the hospital would be visited by numerous specialists, government officials, and researchers, all drawn by rumors of the mysterious birth. But by then, Amara and James Williams had already disappeared with their daughter, leaving behind only a thank you note for Dr. Patel and a series of unanswered questions that would haunt the medical community for years to come. The truth about Luna Williams and her extraordinary birth would remain hidden for many years, but its impact would ripple through time, touching lives across the globe and setting the stage for a transformation that would challenge humanity's understanding of its own potential. 7 years passed like a dream in the remote mountains of New Zealand, where the Williams family had built a new life far from prying eyes. Their home, a modern structure of glass and steel tucked into the mountainside, was designed to harness and contain the energy that now regularly emanated from their growing daughter. Luna sat cross-legged in the garden, her dark hair moving in a breeze that affected nothing else around her. At 7, she was a striking child with eyes that shifted color like opals catching light. Above her hovering hand, flowers grew and bloomed in seconds, their life cycles accelerated by her mere presence. "Luna, sweetheart," Amara called from the house's threshold, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "Remember what we discussed about practicing only inside the shielded room?" But Luna was lost in concentration. In her mind, she walked through the cellular structure of the plants, understanding instinctively how to speed up their mitosis, how to coax them into expressing dormant genes. It wasn't until she heard the distinctive whir of approaching helicopters that her concentration broke, sending a visible shockwave through the garden that made every plant within 20 feet suddenly mature and wither. James burst out of his home office, where he'd been monitoring the security systems. "They found us," he said, his voice tight. "Amara, initiate Protocol Omega." The family had rehearsed this scenario countless times, but they'd hoped they'd never need to use it. Luna stood quickly, her small face serious beyond her years. She'd always known they were running from something, even if her parents had tried to shield her from the full truth. As Amara rushed Luna to the panic room, James accessed a hidden terminal in his office. He had to warn the others. Over the years, he'd made contact with other families in similar situations. Parents of children born during that same mysterious geomagnetic storm. They called themselves the Aurora Network, and they'd been preparing for this day. The helicopters drew closer, their silhouettes visible now against the mountain backdrop. They bore no markings, but James recognized the configuration, the Helios Foundation, a powerful organization that had been hunting children like Luna for years under the guise of a humanitarian research initiative. Inside the panic room, Luna turned to her mother. "They're like me, aren't they? The people in the helicopters?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes swirled with colors that reflected her inner turmoil. Amara hesitated before answering. "No, sweetheart. They're people who want to understand what makes you special. But their methods." She was interrupted by a deep rumble that shook the entire house. Luna closed her eyes, extending her awareness outward like she'd discovered she could do. She felt them, 12 minds approaching, their thoughts focused and tactical. But behind them, she sensed something else, a presence that made her gasp. "There's another child with them, Mom. They're using her to track us." In his office, James initiated the house's defensive systems, technology he developed specifically to dampen and obscure energy signatures like Luna's. But he knew it wouldn't hold them for long. As he worked, his secure terminal lit up with messages from the Aurora Network. "Singapore safe house compromised. Mumbai cell gone dark. They're moving on all locations." This wasn't just about Luna anymore. The Helios Foundation was making its move worldwide, targeting all the children born during the Aurora event. James grabbed his emergency pack and ran for the panic room, but he was too late. The house's lights flickered, and every electronic device went dead. Through the windows, James saw a figure floating down from one of the helicopters, a girl about Luna's age, surrounded by a corona of shifting energy. This had to be Iris, the first child captured by Helios, now turned into their tracker. In the panic room, Luna suddenly stood straight, her eyes blazing. "Mom, I can feel her. She's scared. They're hurting her to make her help them." Before Amara could stop her, Luna placed her hand against the wall. Energy coursed through the building structure, restoring power but also creating a beacon that could be seen for miles. James made it to the panic room just as the house's main door burst open. Dr. Thomas Blackwood, the Helios Foundation's chief researcher, stepped in flanked by armed guards. His voice carried through the house's intercom system. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams, let's be reasonable. We're here to help Luna reach her full potential. You've seen what she can do, imagine what she could become with proper guidance." Luna looked at her parents, her young face set with determination. "They won't stop hunting us," she said, showing that preternatural wisdom that sometimes emerged from her. "And they'll keep using Iris and hurting her." She lifted her hand, and the panic room's door began to glow. "Luna, no." Amara reached for her daughter, but she couldn't move. Luna had created some kind of energy field that held her parents in place. "I'm sorry," Luna whispered. "But I can't let them hurt anyone else to get to me." The door swung open, and Luna stepped out to face whatever waited beyond. The confrontation that followed would be remembered by everyone present, though their accounts would differ wildly. Luna Williams, 7 years old, walked calmly through her home to meet the most powerful organization on Earth. But she was not walking to surrender, she was walking to begin a revolution that would shake the foundations of human society. As she approached Dr. Blackwood, the other child, Iris, broke free from her handlers and ran to Luna's side. The two girls faced the adults together, their powers intermingling in visible waves of energy that made the air itself shimmer with possibility. In that moment, as two extraordinary children stood against an army of adults, the true awakening began, not just of Luna's powers, but of a new chapter in human evolution that would reshape the world in ways no one could predict. The Helios Foundation's primary facility rose from the Norwegian fjords like a vision from the future, a gleaming complex of white buildings and curved glass, surrounded by mountains that kept it hidden from the world. But for Luna, who stood at her window watching the aurora borealis dance across the night sky, it felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at her home. The moment she and Iris had joined hands, their combined powers had created a phenomenon that the scientists still couldn't explain. Instead of a fight, there had been a negotiation. Luna had agreed to come willingly, but only if her parents could stay with her and if the Foundation stopped hunting other children. "They're lying to us," Iris said, materializing beside Luna's bed. In the months since their first meeting, the two girls had developed an almost telepathic bond. Iris, with her silver-white hair and violet eyes, looked ethereal in the aurora's light. "I found something in the restricted archives." Luna turned from the window, her own powers humming in response to her friend's presence. At 7.5, she spoke and thought with the maturity of someone far older. "Show me." Iris pressed her palm to Luna's forehead, sharing a vision of what she'd discovered. Hidden levels beneath the facility, other children in suspended animation, and documents that spoke of Phase 2, genetic manipulation on a global scale. "There are more of us here than they've told us," Iris whispered. "And Dr. Blackwood, he's not trying to help us. He's trying to replicate us." The door chimed, interrupting their conversation. Dr. Daniela Rossi, one of the younger researchers, entered with her usual warm smile. Unlike most of the staff, she seemed to genuinely care about the children's well-being. "Luna, Iris, it's time for today's session." The girls followed Dr. Rossi through the pristine corridors, passing other children who'd been brought to the facility. Each had their own unique abilities, there was Jean from Seoul who could manipulate technology with a thought, and Zara from Lagos who could see possible futures branching out like threads of light. All born during that same Aurora event, all showing powers that defied scientific explanation. The testing chamber was a vast room with walls that could absorb and measure energy outputs. Dr. Blackwood waited inside, along with Luna's parents who were required to observe every session. James and Amara Williams sat in the observation area, their faces showing the strain of months spent watching their daughter being studied like a laboratory specimen. Today, Dr. Blackwood announced, "We're going to try something new." He gestured to a sealed container in the center of the room. Inside this box is a virus capable of causing a global pandemic. I want you to neutralize it. Luna's parents shot to their feet, but the security fields held them back. This is insane. James shouted. She's just a child. A child who can manipulate matter at the molecular level, Blackwood responded calmly. We need to know the extent of her abilities. The potential applications for medicine alone. He stopped speaking because Luna had already walked to the container. She placed her hand on its surface, closing her eyes. The other children watched in fascination as her power flowed visible through the air, a dance of light and energy that penetrated the container's walls. The virus, Luna said softly, it's not real. It's a test within a test. She opened her eyes, which now shone with inner fire. But there is something else here. Something you've been hiding under the facility. Blackwood's composure cracked for the first time. That's enough for today, he said sharply, moving to end the session. But Luna wasn't finished. She reached out with her power, connecting with every child in the facility. Through their combined abilities, she could sense everything, the secret laboratories, the failed experiments, the true purpose of the Helios Foundation. You want to control evolution itself, Luna said, her voice overlapping with the voices of all the other children. You think if you can replicate our abilities, you can choose who becomes enhanced and who doesn't. You want to create a new human race that you can control. The lights in the facility flickered as the children's combined powers grew stronger. Alarms began to blare, and security teams rushed into the room, but they froze in their tracks as an invisible force held them in place. Dar. Rossi moved quietly to a control panel, disabling the security fields that held Luna's parents. She had been waiting for this moment, working secretly to help the children while gathering evidence of Blackwood's true plans. Luna, Amara called out to her daughter, whatever you're going to do, be careful. Luna turned to her mother, a sad smile on her face. I understand now why we were born this way. The Aurora wasn't an accident. It was the Earth itself evolving, creating children who could protect it from people like Dr. Blackwood. We're not meant to be weapons or tools. We're meant to be guardians. The other children moved to join Luna and Iris in the center of the room. Jin's powers shut down the facility's security systems. Zara's ability revealed the safest path forward. And Iris's energy merged with Luna's, creating a field that protected them all. Dr. Blackwood reached for an emergency control panel, but his hand passed through it like smoke. The entire room had begun to shift and change, responding to the children's combined will. The walls became transparent, revealing the truth to everyone present, the hidden levels, the failed experiments, everything the Helios Foundation had tried to conceal. This isn't a sanctuary, Luna announced, her voice carrying through the entire facility. It's a prison. But not for much longer. As if in response to her words, the aurora above the facility intensified, its lights reaching down like fingers of fate to touch the building itself. The time for secrets was over. The time for true awakening had begun. And in that moment, as the children of the aurora stood united, the world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what these extraordinary beings would choose to do with their power, and whether humanity was ready for the changes that were coming. The world watched in stunned silence as the video spread across every digital platform simultaneously, dozens of children with extraordinary abilities, exposing the dark secrets of the Helios Foundation. Jin's mastery over technology ensured no one could stop the broadcast, while Zara's future sight helped them stay ahead of every attempt to silence them. From their new base in an abandoned monastery high in the Himalayas, Luna and her growing family of gifted children had spent the past month planning this moment. The monastery's ancient walls thrummed with the combined energy of 47 children, all born during the Aurora event, all finally free and united. "They're mobilizing forces," Jean announced, his fingers dancing over holographic displays he'd created from salvaged technology. Military units in 12 countries, all converging on suspected sanctuary locations. Luna, now approaching her 8th birthday but with wisdom far beyond her years, stood at the monastery's highest window. The mountains around them were shrouded in mist, but through her enhanced senses, she could feel the approaching storm, both meteorological and metaphorical. "Dr. Rossi's team has secured the last of the evidence," Iris reported, appearing silently beside Luna. In the months since their escape, Iris had become Luna's closest confidant and second-in-command of their growing movement. "The world knows about the experiments now, the attempted genetic manipulation, everything. But exposure wasn't enough. Dr. Blackwood and the Helios Foundation had contingency plans that went deeper than anyone had suspected. Through their global network of enlightened adults, including Dr. Rossi and members of the original Aurora network, the children had discovered Phase 3 of Blackwood's plan, forced evolution through atmospheric dispersal of engineered particles designed to activate dormant genes. He's trying to force the next step in human evolution, Luna explained to the assembled children in the monastery's great hall. But you can't force evolution without consequences. The simulations Jean recovered show that 90% of the human population wouldn't survive the change. The air in the hall crackled with the combined anxiety and determination of dozens of gifted children. Among them was Raphael from Brazil, who could heal with a touch, and twins Aria and Atlas from Greece who could manipulate gravity itself. Each had their own story of escape, their own traumas to overcome, but together they had found strength. "They're calling us terrorists," Jean projected news headlines onto the wall. "Saying we're dangerous children who need to be contained for the public good." Luna touched the smooth stone wall of the monastery, feeling the ancient wisdom embedded within it. "They fear what they don't understand," she said softly. "But fear can't be our enemy. Fear is what drives them to make these choices." A sudden commotion drew everyone's attention. Zara stood rigid, her eyes glowing as she witnessed possible futures unfolding. "They're not just coming for us," she gasped. "Blackwood, he's accelerated the timeline. The particles are already being loaded onto aircraft. He's going to release them tonight, during the strongest Aurora event since our birth." The children erupted in shocked discussions, their powers flaring with their emotions and causing the monastery to shudder. Luna raised her hand, and immediate silence fell. "This was always going to be the moment," she said, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. "Not just a rebellion against those who would control us, but a chance to show humanity a better way forward." James and Amara Williams, who had become surrogate parents to many of the rescued children, stepped forward. "Whatever you're planning," James said, "you don't have to do it alone." Luna smiled at her parents, grateful for their unwavering support. "What we're planning will take all of us, gifted and non-gifted alike. Because that's what they don't understand. Evolution isn't about creating a superior race. It's about learning to work together in new ways." The plan came together with supernatural speed, each child contributing their unique abilities. Jean created a network of quantum-entangled communications devices. The twins, Aria and Atlas, prepared to manipulate gravity fields around Blackwood's aircraft. Raphael worked with Dr. Rossi to develop a counteragent to the particles, just in case some were released. But the core of the plan rested with Luna and Iris. Together, they had discovered something extraordinary about their powers. They could not only manipulate energy and matter but could influence the very fabric of reality when working in perfect harmony. As night fell and the aurora began to paint the sky in sheets of ghostly light, Luna addressed their assembled force one final time. Children with powers beyond imagination stood shoulder to shoulder with dedicated adults who believed in their cause. "They call this a rebellion," Luna said, her voice carrying to every corner of the monastery. "But we're not fighting against humanity, we're fighting for it. Every one of us was born during a moment when the earth itself reached out to create guardians for its future. Now it's time to show them what that really means." The monastery erupted in activity as their counteroffensive began. Jin's devices activated worldwide, connecting their allies. The twins took to the sky, ready to intercept aircraft. And in the heart of the monastery, Luna and Iris began to glow with a light that echoed the aurora above. As they prepared to face the full might of the Helios Foundation and its military allies, Luna felt not fear but a profound sense of purpose. This wasn't just about stopping Blackwood's plan, it was about showing the world that the next step in human evolution wasn't about power or control, but about understanding and unity. The final battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and its fate rested in the hands of children who had been born to protect it. The night sky blazed with unprecedented auroral activity, bands of light rippling across the heavens in impossible colors. High above the Himalayas, two forces clashed in a battle that would determine humanity's future. Blackwood's fleet of aircraft, carrying their deadly evolutionary catalyst, faced off against children who flew through the air manipulating forces beyond human comprehension. Luna and Iris stood atop the monastery's highest tower, their combined energy creating a dome of shifting light that protected their base from military strikes. Below them, Jin orchestrated their global response through his quantum network, coordinating with gifted children and adult allies on every continent. First wave of aircraft approaching, Arya called out as she and Atlas soared overhead. The twins' gravity manipulation had already forced 3 planes to land safely, their particle dispersal systems disabled by Jin's technological interference. But Blackwood had prepared for this. From his command center in a hidden bunker, he activated his final contingency, dozens of orbital satellites designed to create a concentrated electromagnetic pulse that would theoretically neutralize the children's abilities. "Something's wrong," Zara warned, her future sight revealing multiple devastating possibilities. "The satellites, they're going to interact with the aurora in ways they didn't predict. The reaction could tear apart Earth's magnetic field." Luna felt it too, a disturbance in the very fabric of reality as Blackwood's desperate gambit threatened to unleash forces beyond anyone's control. The aurora intensified, its lights now visible worldwide as the satellites began their sequence. In that moment of crisis, Luna finally understood the truth that had been waiting since her birth. The aurora that had gifted them their powers wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was a message, a response to humanity's growing crisis. And now, facing potential global devastation, it was time to deliver that message. "Everyone," Luna's voice reached all the gifted children through their shared connection, "I need you to trust me. What we were born for, it wasn't just to stop people like Blackwood. It was to help humanity take its next step, but not through force or fear. Through choice and understanding." Iris gripped Luna's hand tighter, immediately comprehending her plan. Around the world, every gifted child born during the aurora felt the resonance of Luna's intention. Even Dr. Blackwood, watching from his bunker, felt something stir in the air, a power older than humanity itself, awakening. Luna stepped forward, raising her free hand toward the turbulent sky. Dr. Blackwood wanted to force evolution through science. But true evolution comes from understanding, from connection, from choice. Her voice carried impossibly across the globe, reaching every human mind. "Let us show you what we see." In that moment, every gifted child channeled their power through Luna and Iris. The aurora above exploded into unprecedented brilliance, and suddenly, every human on Earth could feel what the children felt, the interconnectedness of all life, the delicate balance of nature, the infinite potential within each soul. Through this shared consciousness, humanity experienced a glimpse of what the gifted children had always known. They felt the Earth's pain from centuries of exploitation, but also its hope for healing. They understood that evolution wasn't about becoming more powerful, but about becoming more aware, more compassionate, more united. The satellite network, designed to suppress the children's powers, instead became a conduit for this global awakening. Gene reprogrammed them in real time, turning weapons into tools of enlightenment. The particles Blackwood had meant to forcefully evolve humanity were transformed by Luna's power into harmless light, adding to the Aurora's display. In his bunker, Dr. Blackwood fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the truth he was experiencing. The very evolution he had sought to control was happening, but not through his intervention. It was happening through understanding, through the bridge these extraordinary children had built between humanity's present and its potential. As the shared vision reached its peak, Luna spoke one final time to the world: "We were born during the Aurora not to rule or to fight, but to guide." The next step in human evolution isn't about gaining powers like ours. It's about understanding that we're all connected, all responsible for each other and for this planet we share. The choice to evolve, to grow, to become better, that choice belongs to each of you. The vision faded gradually, leaving humanity forever changed. The gifted children remained, their powers intact, but now understood as guides rather than threats. The Helios Foundation's weapons were neutralized, their secret facilities transformed into centers of learning where gifted and non-gifted humans could work together to build a better future. 1 year later, Luna stood again at the monastery window, watching a new generation of children, both gifted and non-gifted, learning together. The Aurora still danced occasionally in the sky, but now it was seen as a reminder rather than a mystery. Beside her, Iris smiled as they watched their extended family grow and thrive. Dr. Rossi, now heading a new international cooperative dedicated to peaceful human advancement, had just arrived with news. More children were being born with gifts, but differently than before. These new abilities seemed focused on healing, on connection, on understanding, exactly what humanity needed to face its future challenges. Was this always how it was supposed to end? Iris asked Luna, watching the children play below. Luna shook her head, smiling. It's not an ending. It's a beginning. Every child born, gifted or not, brings new possibilities. Our job now is to make sure they all have the chance to choose their own path. As if in response to her words, the Aurora flickered briefly across the sky, no longer a harbinger of change, but a promise of hope. The miraculous birth that had started this journey had led not to conflict or domination, but to understanding and unity. And in that understanding, humanity had found its true path forward, guided by children who had been born to show them the way.